Hello and welcome to our World Innovations Day online event. Today we're going to be sharing insight into the first annual Ingenuity Cup and our incredible participating teams. This webinar is a joint production of Blue Callum and the World Innovations Forum. My name is Cleo and I'm a product manager at Blue Callum, a neuro-innovation technology company. We're going to start the event shortly, but first I'd like to run through some quick housekeeping items. For your information, we'll be recording this webinar and making it available to you in the next couple of days, so there's no need to take notes or screenshots or anything like that. And secondly, if you have any questions throughout the webinar about the Ingenuity Cup or anything else that we're doing, feel free to submit them in the Zoom question and answer box or the chat box, and we'll address them in the middle of the presentation. So please keep your questions and your comments running throughout the whole time, and we can make sure that we address them live. So for today's event, I'm really excited to be joined by Axel Schulze and Elisa Wengi. Axel is founder and CEO of Blue Callum Group and chairman of the World Innovations Forum Foundation. He started and successfully exited 4 companies, the biggest reaching $5 billion in revenue, the second close to $1 billion, and is a published author and patent holder. He has previously been listed in the Global 100 Most Influential Startup Accelerators and is a past winner of the San Francisco Entrepreneur Award. While living in Silicon Valley, he also served as an early advisor at LinkedIn and was a committee chairman at the Software and Information Industry Association. More recently, Axel has been researching how the brain creates and processes ideas and why some ideas create disruption. And Elisa Wengi is the Marketing and Communications Manager at Blue Callum and the World Innovations Forum, with previous experience in both entrepreneurial environments and enterprises. She has lived and been educated in multiple countries. So with that said, I would like to welcome both of our panelists for today, and we'll be hearing from them just now and a little bit later on as well. But we're going to get started by learning a bit more about the Ingenuity Cup from Blue Callum founder, Axel Schulze. Welcome, Axel.
Hey, thank you very much. And yeah, also from my side, happy Ingenuity Day or Innovations Day. So I was thinking about a starting point and the topic of the event, which was created by the team, imagination and innovation, helped me a little bit to get a starting point. And also it explains a little bit why we, and those who know us, have actually this picture, what you see here, basically since the beginning of World Innovations Forum. We're interested in connecting the world, and as you can see, sort of the shining world, and pretty much everything looks similar. And I think we would love to see that as a reality, probably in the next 500 years, but we have to have a starting point somewhere. So with imagination and innovation being an amazing pair, we thought that's a perfect start. And I want to talk a little bit about why nobody will be able actually to copy disruptive ideas, which is one of these big topics whenever companies start and fear their competition, or startups start and fear bigger companies. I want to talk a little bit about how it's about open innovation projects, how are these organized, and about intellectual property ruling. And this leads basically back to why nobody can steal your idea. And finally, an open innovation challenge that we're going to conduct, basically really starting next week. So thanks to this amazing team who all helped work, really tirelessly on this project. And I just have to say, these are the people who actually make it happen. Now, when we think about innovation, I'd like to start with the innovation tree. This is where we see us today. And when you look at some of these points, and some of the people may have actually seen it, we start with plows and with wagons and houses. And out of this came skyscrapers and health analysis and medicine, fridges and trades and internet and everything we have today. But we also know this is growing exponentially. So we have this radical growth of innovation. I remember back in the days when I was young, quote unquote, there was continuously this question, what is the next big thing? This question doesn't come up anymore because the next big thing already started yesterday and there's another big thing starting tomorrow. If we're thinking at everything that's going on in the space industry, in the mobility industry, meaning cars and flights and trains and everything you have to move from one stage to the other, in the tech industry, in the pharmaceutical industry, I mean, there is innovation almost every day, at least, I mean, radical improvement. But in the next 10 years, it will look like this. And so there is no longer a developed versus a emerging country situation because of innovation. And I mean, we have been running our last accelerator 8 was actually in Vietnam with teams from Indonesia, from South Korea, from Vietnam, obviously, and so forth. And we see the same pace, if not even a faster traction in the Asian countries. And we see the same thing in Africa. When you look into countries like Rwanda, which was probably 10 years ago on the list of the poorest countries on earth. And if you fly into Rwanda these days, you think this is a new airport in New York or something like that. And so I think we all humans have to recognize that the speed of innovation determines the prosperity of every country in the world. And pretty much every country is running like crazy right now. So innovation is the key driver. I mean, when we started Innovations Forum, we looked at what made the difference between the developed countries today and the emerging or developing countries, and it is innovation. There is not a single other reason why any country on the planet can be faster or not faster without innovation. It doesn't exist. So one of the biggest questions we see from both startups and from established companies is, what is the perfect way to get a great idea? And this question, you know, runs through probably most heads of any kind of entrepreneur and business owner. And when we have the best idea, we will also get to successful innovation. So the idea is the starting point as we know it. And here is something that may, you know, wonder a couple people when I say, do not look for a great idea, period. Don't. You will not find the great idea. You will find thousands of ideas because the brain produces thousands of ideas, whether you look for it or not. But when you combine one of these great ideas with an existing problem, then that would be the great idea for successful innovation. So therefore, look for a problem that needs to be solved. And we have thousands of problems, I mean, millions of problems on Earth that needs to be solved. So, I mean, one can get very philosophically and say, okay, humans exist to solve the problems because, you know, the rest of the world lives in theoretical harmony until the Earth blows up and then everything is gone. But we have a chance to solve problems that the Earth is not gone, not quick enough, so that we cannot save basically every life on Earth. And this is somehow also deeply ingrained in all religious models and so on, that, you know, we want to solve the world. And even if you don't have the concept of the idea because you say, I'm not an engineer, I'm not a physicist, I'm not a chemist, well, you may be the person who organizes it. And if you look into every single successful startup on the planet, you see a team. And that team is not all engineers. There's a business person, there is an engineer or physicist or, you know, whatever kind of trade. And there's other people who do the finance and the marketing and the sales. And these combinations of teams make a company successful or not. Which means if you can organize such a team, then that is the most important part of getting to innovation. It isn't, sorry to say that, one specific area. I mean, people said in the late 90s, you know, the successful companies are those who have great marketing. And you see that pattern, yes. Successfully grown companies have amazing products. Yeah, there's somebody who built the products. But they have also this cool customer experience and the sales teams. Yeah, it comes all together. And there's not a single one where you say, yeah, they have a great product, but everything else is terrible. Hardly to find some of those. So when you can imagine what you want to solve, that is actually enough. So it isn't a great idea per se, even though it's needed, because if you don't have this idea, you cannot build anything on top of it, but you need to imagine it. And this imagination is one of the things where the crossover comes from innovation and creativity. At this point, it actually doesn't matter innovation, creativity, it comes to itself. So if you can imagine a solution, then you can build it. And the reason is that all ideas ever created come from the past experience. And I don't want to go into neuroscience, but that is the reason why everything we can imagine, we can make, because there's nothing our brain can actually create new. So when we get to this idea, we also have to recognize that this idea, the value is initially zero. So there is no value on any idea. Think about it. We have about 7.8, close to 8 billion people on this planet. They create an average between 10,000 and 100,000 ideas. So we are drowning in more than 1 trillion ideas every single day, which means these ideas have no zero value. But when you turn the idea into something that you want to make happen, and then there is the key factor after you've validated this idea in the market that people say, wow, this is actually cool. I would even pay something for that. Then you'll find your first test users. And they wouldn't pay in the beginning, but they would test it out and would help you to say, okay, this is really, really cool now, or still not, and then you still get back and work. The value of the innovation grows with its distribution, meaning if you have thousands and thousands and millions of users, then that's the value creation of the innovation. Without it, sorry, your idea is zero. And now you may probably begin to think about if the idea is zero without the execution and bringing it to market and building it and everything around it, the sales and the marketing, the finance. Who would steal an idea if it's of no value? And that is a very, very valid question. Who would steal it? Probably nobody. And therefore, we can actually say that we really focus on one thing and one thing only. And that is the people we innovate for. You will always innovate for an audience. Please, not for yourself. That is considered a hobby. And if it's a hobby, that is great. And you should pursue that, but not in the context of innovation, an innovative solution for a market, a audience, and so on. So if you put it together, what we just said, look for a problem, not for an idea. And you find the problem in your audience. This may be a market, this may be friends, this may be a company, this may be an internal problem in the company. So the audience is the people you innovate for. Also, you may remember what I just said. If you can imagine it, then the result can be made happen. You can make it happen. But the result is for this audience. And the real value comes when you get the product to market and you have the audience again. So for everybody who is thinking about innovation, always think about the audience who you innovate for. And that is unfortunately not really very obvious to many people. But if you say, hey, I have a great idea, I believe I could do this or that. Yeah, I mean, you try it out. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But don't expect that this audience that will buy it or shall buy it will be happily do that. So think audience first. And if you look at the biggest problems, whether this is new cars like electric cars, whether this is any kind of software and platform, whether this is any kind of new pharmaceutical industrialized product and so forth, is always in context of an audience. So as an innovator, as somebody who wants to do it, solve a problem for an audience and then try to build it based on your imagination and based on the feedback from this market that you are serving to. So then coming back, why nobody can steal your idea, even if you're still fearful, saying, it's zero, yeah, but it's already something. And if this other company would basically build it out, then they would blow me away, but they cannot. So I said earlier, the ideas get composed in our brain, and you will already, when you have a very sophisticated solution for something, or even a very easy one, you will probably have the hardest time to share it with others. Share it with your parents. They probably don't understand. Share it with your friends. They probably don't believe that you can make it happen. Share it with future customers. They probably doubted that this will ever work. So you will realize you have this amazing idea and nobody trusts you can do that. Why, now asking you, should a competitor that is doomed to make profits and has an organization that is fully focused on what they do, why should they try an idea that even your friends don't believe it's possible? There is no reason. But they know better than you today that going through an idea, the part that you communicate is only a fraction of the complex part of the idea. So most is still in your brain. And when you build the first product or the first prototype, you already have a new product or a better version in mind. You're just not able to build it yet. And then there comes the next. And there's one thing that we teach in the accelerator. If people don't copy you, that is actually sad, because you can only become a market leader when you have followers. If you don't have followers in that what you try to lead, you're not a market leader. So therefore, invite people to follow you. You might have heard that Elon Musk put all his patents on basically availability as a common access point for the electric engines, for the cooling of the batteries, for the batteries themselves. Why? He will not alone, if he patents everything, he will not be able on his own, no matter how big he is in terms of money and brain, to basically serve the world with automobiles. He would not. So therefore, he needs the follower who follows his model. And then there's a lot of people who say, I buy this. This is much cheaper. Yeah, buy it. You would never buy an expensive Tesla anyway. But those who want, they buy the original product. And so there is this list of reasons why don't worry about the competition and don't worry about somebody stealing your idea. I had a patent on a product that we built a couple of years ago. It was very successful until I realized there is something in the market that makes it now a little harder than I had anticipated. And a good friend of mine at Cisco, who was also actually trying to get us in, he said, you know what, we can't, I don't get it through. I said, why? What's wrong with it? He said, the executives decided not to, because with your patent, you own literally the market of the product that you're building, and this risk is too big for us. We don't want to deal with any kind of problems that if you're still a very young company, even though we were already, fast growing, we did 10 million revenue and we're profitable and everything, but it was still too small for Cisco to trust. And so we had to actually give up on the patent to get to this deal. We had a special deal with Cisco, and I realized that the patent actually has a real dark side. If I wouldn't have this friend there, I would probably have never known, because they don't say, hey, because of your patent, we don't buy your product. I mean, this sounds silly, right? But he said, that was actually the decision. So take your protection, very, very loose. I mean, if you focus on perfect execution, then you will win. If you don't, you will lose the game anyway, with or without patent. So the patent is a costly thing, and actually tries to get, or it gets your energy away from what you're doing. So, and what we're trying to do is an open innovation organization, or try to help people organize open innovation projects. And our Ingenuity Cup is an open innovation project. And so what you will do when you run open innovation, you will invite your audience to join to collaborate with you on the solution. So invite them, to, as a customer or business partner, to help you understand how they work. I mean, this little picture here, how do they move the coffee beans, on this little cart, and how do they get it off, and everything. So you see any pain point in that process, and therefore prepare the question well. So what do you want to know about this process? And when you see something this is odd, never assume you're stupid, because you should know. You shouldn't know anything about it. And even the people that you ask for probably don't know all the answers. If they would, they would not have a problem. And it's interesting that oftentimes the people are the problems themselves, because otherwise they would solve the problem, and there would be nothing to solve for you. So start by reaching out to the people in your industry. Use LinkedIn. Everybody in this field, you can find them super easily. And then listen very carefully. And listening is an art in itself. And just one short word about listening. When you speak, the other person typically already prepares an answer, and they may actually defend their position. That means that when you speak too long, like I usually do, then I take basically the preparation of the answer away, which would hurt me, because I want to know their answer. So listen very carefully, and don't prepare your defense position, why you think this way or that way. Just listen and take it in as is, and don't argue. You may want to drive deeper, but you don't want to argue. And then, you take all your knowledge and you start building whatever you build. And also here, you need the support from your customers. They see what you build and say, hey, this looks a little bit awkward, or this doesn't look nice, or this doesn't work. Or while we worked with it, we came to a new idea, and then you may rip it all apart. And if you're an engineer, you will probably defend your work logically. But if you're not, then you will tell your engineer that they have to rip it off and start from scratch. And, why did we do that? Well, we learned something new. So this learning and listening is a key factor for innovation. If you don't do that, really bad. We ourselves just building this new innovative application to actually help think. And we learned a lot, and we actually also had to turn things off again that we built in the first place, and we changed, and people say, oh, another change. Yeah, another change, because we're learning. And it's interesting to understand that learning, thinking, and changing is all the same process in our mind. If we master that, we come to a superb solution. Coming back to competition, it's almost impossible to follow all these traces. And this is the reason why Airbnb, with all its wonderful, vacation rental technique, which seems to be so obvious, is still not really copied by the hotel industry. Same reason why the mechanism of Uber, which is super simple, is still not copied by the taxi industry. And 10 years after Tesla sold their first cars, It's barely coming now and still not catching up with Tesla. And you will see this in pretty much every other industry. And so when you work with your customers and ask for advice and review and I mean, come to change, this is totally okay. And here's a big discrepancy between change and strategy. If your vision is clear towards a goal that you saw in your market, there is a problem and you want to solve it, you will go a zigzag, but still don't change your strategy. Even though there's all these talks about pivoting and right and left and doing this, and if this doesn't work, do something else. Well, there's a very fine limit to how far you do the zigzag. And most people don't even see that zigzag. They just, oh, okay, then we do this. Well, that's a different topic. So intellectual property ruling in the Open Innovation Project is actually very simple. You solve a problem. Your audience tells you what they need. So there's already a handshake between you and them, because without you solving the problem and they telling you that nothing would happen. So therefore, people are basically pari. You produce it and they purchase it. And because the production costs money, so they pay the money for you to produce, and they leave a little bit of a profit for you to reinvent and improve the product down the road. That is the understanding of protecting your intellectual property. And it's not the right that you had the idea, because your idea doesn't come exclusively from you, because our brain cannot create anything out of the blue. It always needs all the inputs to do that. And so if you forget about the right, but the mechanism of collaborative invention with some others, then that's probably the best path to go. And I can tell you we have probably 10 aspects of what we built in Blue Column, and we still don't have a patent. Because we believe that execution is the differentiator, and we believe that if we don't execute well, somebody else will. Rightfully, they will basically win the game, and not the one with the patent in the hand. I had that before. So, and the interesting thing is that with that technique, so to speak, you will beat every of the biggest enterprises, because they all work in isolation. And that's also one reason why more than 90% of disruptive solutions in the last 25 years came from startups that became unicorns and unicorn alikes and won the game, and not the industry. We're still looking for industrial disruptive innovation. So if you know anybody or anything that did that in an enterprise that disrupted a market, well, we're very, very interesting to hear about it. The only example we have, which is, even though when you look under the hood, is actually pretty interesting to understand, but the Nespresso, these coffee capsules that are seen all over the world, and with a special machine where you put in the capsule, you push it down, and then you start the machine. That was a disruptive innovation to the coffee industry. That was from Nestle. It was an employee from Nestle, but they didn't actually use it, though. He walked away, he started to build on his own, then he came back, and then finally somebody understood, well, this is amazing. And so therefore it is still an enterprise-based disruptive innovation, but there's so little. Okay, so the Ingenuity Cup is an open innovation challenge and a training for you. And so for the next 40 days, you will be basically in the game to change the world, and maybe defining your own journey, or the journey may define you. So what you will do is find a problem if you don't already have one. And so all the teams we interviewed, we ask, do you have a problem? There's some with not really sure. And we said that is fine too, because we have a mechanic, so to speak. We call it a methodology, or we say innovation opportunity discovery. And simply because there are so many problems out there and teams want to solve one of these problems, we help to find a match between the problem that exists out there and the capabilities of the team. Then you verify the details with customers Now you say, I don't have any customers. Of course not, but they will become your customers. So you will pick people where you validate the idea that this is actually a good idea. And we'll help you in the questions and so on, because there's a couple of traps in this game, but we'll get over that. And then you create a groundbreaking idea and be probably very excited how far you came, because this is not a 60-minute brainstorm meeting. This is actually a 2-week ideation process, fundamentally different from anything and everything you heard about idea creation. But we followed basically the rules of neuroscience and how the brain actually creates ideas, what stimulates, what does not, and so forth. And then we validate this idea again with the audience, with your potential customers, and we create a plan, including a financial plan, so that an investor will actually invest into this idea. Now, investors don't invest in ideas, but if you can communicate an idea to an investor that they believe that this is actually very interesting, then you are on the winning path. And this is why the validation and the plan and the financial pitch and so on takes another 2 weeks. And then the prototype that you will build, and this may be not a physical product, this may be a little bit of code if it's software, but it may be basically a drawing and a concept, and you go with that to market. And you will probably realize that there are ways to get money and purchases, pre-product or pre-production purchases from your potential customers. And when you hit that goal, and we will help you to get there, and we do this everything in 40 days with your help. I mean, it's a marathon. But within these 8 weeks or these 40 days, 40 work days, you will get to a disruptive innovation in the market, not just the idea, not just the concept, but actually in the market. And then we will get you in front of investors and so forth. So in order to get there, we have some unique methods that put your brain to work, because at the end of the day, this is an intellectual process. This is not hard work. This is actually smart work. So you learn how the brain creates and processes ideas. You learn and involve others, or with others you learn to improve that idea to a degree that it is almost unbeatable. And it's then not only a product idea, it's also a little bit of a business model idea, it's a financial idea, and we teach you basically to get there. You don't need any degree, you don't need any kind of mega education. You probably learned that most of the entrepreneurs who are really successful, they're dropouts from universities. They just had the bare bone school education. I'm one of those. And so we realized one thing over time, that you can get actually trained to death. Because if you follow learn and repeat and learn and repeat and learn and repeat until you get a job, and then in this job you learn what need to be done and repeat and do the same thing, it gets harder and harder and harder. And this is why elderly have a huge problem to get actually into an entrepreneurial job. So from the first prototype out to nothing, out of nothing, you will then basically get into the market. And this sounds weird, but when you look at how Boxnet, and I'll name, the known brands because everybody knows them, the Facebooks and the LinkedIn, I mean, all these names have the same pattern. Like Cleo said, I founded 4 companies. One multi-billion dollar, the other one is actually very close to $1 billion. And we follow the same rules like every other of these entrepreneurs, because we know this will lead to success. And it's interesting to see that following some processes and at the same time innovating something completely new seems to be an oxymoron. I mean, how can you follow something and create something entirely new? Well, there's a mechanism. I mean, you will live the greatest life on earth, but you still will need to follow the mechanism of your heart it's pumping blood, I mean, every, you know, once in a while, and you still need to breathe, and you do this every day. No, what's wrong with that? But still, your life is so different than any other life of all the other 7.8 billion people. So there is a balance between these two. And then you work on unique methods. One is the deep innovation design method that we created now 2 years ago, which actually inherits all the mechanisms to get to groundbreaking innovation. You will be using a tool, Blue Column Deep. You know, there's no cost on anything, just to make sure. Then we will do weekly coaching meetings to help you get from one step to the next. And since 40 days is a short period of time, it is shorter than any other startup probably did something. But we also know we had our internal world record was basically 5 days to get to groundbreaking ideas. So we're not putting you totally to the stress level, but it will be stress. I mean, I can tell you that, but billion-dollar ideas do not grow on trees, and they do not come for free. There is work involved. Then you complete, you know, different tasks every week. Then there's work, the concept of work smart, not hard. So it is all thinking. We are living in an intellectual world, and this is, again, nothing to do with intellectual education. This has to do with, I mean, you know, you have a brain. You're probably in an age that you're not sure if your brain is actually working well. Honestly, when I was about 16, 17, 18, I thought my brain is just very much below average. I learned over time that most people think so, and it depends on what you do with it rather than what you have, because it's all 3 pounds, all 86 billion neurons. I mean, we have the same basis, but what we do with it is the big difference. When you get to a good solution, we'll introduce you to about 900 international investors. And we believe that if you build a groundbreaking innovation, that you will also get investment to build your own company. Now, some of you may actually be a little bit younger than starting, because you know, when we're from one of the teams in South Korea, where we work actually with a school, then you still start working on your idea, and you don't need to rush it. It doesn't need to be ready tomorrow morning. But the day you get out into the market, which you will one day, then you have to run like hell to get to market, and you build your business. That's how it works. It's actually far simpler than most people think. And most people tell you that it's extremely difficult and it's extremely hard work and all the terrible stories about it, because they miss the point to start. And that is sad. Somebody who wants to build their own company and realizes too old, that's a very depressing moment in life, I have to say. So reach for the stars and be courageous in your thinking, in your vision, in your belief, and in your actions. Actions missing here. Courageous meaning, you know, don't fear anything. I mean, fearful is the biggest enemy of an entrepreneur. Also, being courageous means, you know, you're curious, you want to know things, you dig into things that others may not, because you don't know what's coming out. Curiosity and fearlessness are the 2 key factors out of 10 for getting, you know, getting to the top. Okay, and with that, I'll give it back to Cleo in case there are some questions.
Okay, thank you so much, Axel. So as he just mentioned, if you guys have any questions in the audience, we'll go ahead and just jump straight into our question and answer session now. So yeah, feel free to submit your questions again in the Zoom question and answer box, or also the chat function, and we can address them live. But let's go ahead and get started with some of the questions that came in through chat. So the first question is, will our team be able to keep our innovation at the end of the contest?
Absolutely, yeah. So when you have an innovation that is an innovation, then you keep it up in in the system and you will continue to work with it. It's yours and yours only. Nobody will claim it because everybody who is part of this, basically as a function of an open innovation, is not or confirms that they are not claiming any idea. So the team keeps the innovation and you can execute it. You can build your company on your own. The World Innovations Forum, or we at Blue Column, we don't claim any right whatsoever. I mean, our purpose is to help create more innovative teams. That's basically our giving back. I mean, we were super lucky in our life, and so we want to help others to stay basically on, as we call it in Silicon Valley, stay on the shoulders of giants and, you know, keep going. That is how humanity grows.
Okay, perfect. I hope that answers your question. And so the next question is, how much time does my team need to spend on this contest?
Yeah, so it's a good and interesting question. I mean, to innovate something in 40 days needs probably, obviously, your entire attention. Now, you have other things. You probably are either in a job or at school or at university or have your other day life. Then, you know, that limits, obviously, the power you can develop for the ideation process and for building things. Ideally, you would spend basically half a day next week, from Monday to Friday, for the training, and then you decide for you and your team how much time and when you want to get together in the next 40 days on a daily basis. We run the coaching sessions on Monday in the morning in CET time, which is, I mean, Europe, which is in the afternoon in Asian time. So those who are at school and can be free in the afternoon, that would be super helpful. We do the same for the US. There it's in the morning at Pacific time and around, you know, right before lunch, an hour in New York time or East Coast time. And everybody who is from, there's a couple teams from Latin America is kind of in between these time windows. So the more time you can invest, the better it is for the outcome. But we obviously know that there's some other constraints. So, you know, you will need to balance it out.
Okay, and our final question, or we have two more questions. So our next question is, who can join this contest?
This contest can join anybody who believes that they could create an innovative solution and build something out, even without, as we said, even without any idea. You will want to have a team, because this is how our brain composes the best ideas. And the best teams, by the way, are diverse teams. So a team of 4 engineers, you have only 4 of the same kind of quality. A team with a engineer and with a business person and where somebody has a little bit of financial a twist would be a much better team. So that's really all you want to have.
Okay, perfect. And we have a question about if someone hasn't yet applied but is interested in applying, is that something that they are able to still do?
Yeah, I think, Cleo, you're probably the best to answer this yourself.
I think, so the answer is yes. And I think in the next section, when we have Elisa, who's our marketing and communications manager, she'll have all of the steps and the correct links and the places to direct you. But in short, the answer is yes. And so just reviewing all of the questions, making sure we answered them all. And we have a new question, which is, can we join other teams as the challenge progresses?
Yeah, you can. So the idea here is that, you know, we will make, you know, all the team names and the groups available, and they will be, actually, some will be happy to get additional resources. Some may be a little bit more shy. So obviously it's up to the team to take you in. But the concept of an open innovation is the more the better. And I believe over the next 8 weeks, A lot of people will join and help, and not only from the startup space, but maybe people with lots of business experience. If it comes to financial planning, you may be super lucky to get some actually stars from the financial world or business planners. So the idea is that there will probably come other people to you. And if you're interested to join a team, absolutely yes, and super very welcome.
And just to wrap things up, we'll take one last question, and that is, what is the prize?
Okay, the prize, you probably saw it or should have seen it. So we have a $20,000 cash prize. In addition, we're as I said, we're inviting investors, and we haven't said that yet because we want to learn a little bit about the teams. But we're actually willing ourselves to invest up to $1 million in top-notch companies in equity. So that's an investment, quote unquote, arrangement. So it's not really a price like a cash price. Then there is one thing that is not fully explained yet. We will do that over the next basically 40 days as we finish our arrangements with Space, with a SpaceX, what is it called? Space Perspective Group. The next 5 innovation cups or Ingenuity cups, we will have a selection of the best, so to speak, and they will get up to space 100,000 feet high. That is 3 times as the biggest commercial airplanes go. And you will actually see the curvature of the Earth. You will see and recognize, this is a ball and not a sphere. So everybody who is very involved in the flat Earth community is probably disappointed. But everybody else, I mean, I haven't been up there, but it must be a life-changing experience. Everybody who has been or done something like that is just, it must be just totally amazing. And so we're still working with the team. We have reserved, or actually we have reserved a whole capsule that is 8 teams or 8 people. So we're still, dabbling with how we're gonna do that. So honestly, we don't have a real plan yet, but the vision is to get up with at least the winner of the best, or maybe the 5 best. So the winner of this could theoretically have a chance, no matter how good the others are, to actually also go up to space. We're just working on sponsorships and other things, but we definitely do go. That's for sure.
Okay, thank you. So that is the end of our question and answer session. If you all are thinking of new questions or have more questions, you can always contact us through email. So for example, my email is cleo, C-L-E-O, @bluecalum.com. So feel free to submit any questions. You can also find probably a lot of the answers to your questions on our website as well.